Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and murderous cannibals hoping to chop you up. I'm Noah Hook, and today we're looking at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. This 1995 horror comedy, also known as The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, takes this franchise fully into the 90s with a new brood of skin-wearing maniacs. This time around, some prom-skipping teens take a wrong turn in Chainsawville, and they proceed to get hunted down by a drag-wearing Leatherface, a hootin' and hollerin' Matthew McConaughey, and some fucking Illuminati members. Yeah, you heard me right. The Next Generation was written and directed by Kim Henkel, who co-wrote the original TCM with Tobe Hooper. This was his only directorial effort, but he also co-wrote Eaten Alive and The Unseen, and he's helped produce pretty much every other Texas Chainsaw film after this one. He and producer Robert Kuhn wanted to take the story back to the original, adding in some self-parody and characters that better reflect the youth of the 90s. The film features a bunch of Texas-based young actors, a couple of whom would go on to be pretty big stars. The victims are basically a bunch of nothing characters, but they serve their purpose as punching bags. The Next Generation stars Renee Zellweger from Bridget Jones' Diary and Jerry Maguire as Jenny, Lisa Newmyer from Sin City as Heather, John Harrison from The Substitute Wife as Sean, and Tyler Cohn from Butcher's Bluff as Barry. The villains are the highlight of the film, if you can call it that. They at least bring a lot of enthusiasm. The Slaughter family consists of Robert Jacks from Hannah's War as Leatherface, Matthew frickin' McConaughey from Interstellar and The Wolf of Wall Street as Vilmer, Tony Parensky from Varsity Blues as Darla, and Joe Stevens from Bernie as W.E. With a measly budget of $600,000, making this film was a true challenge. Apparently the entire cast and crew had one Winnebago that they used for hair, makeup, going to the bathroom, and everything else in between scenes. Cinematography was handled by Levi Isaacs of Leprechaun and the Dentist, and the score was co-composed by Leatherface's actor Robert Jacks, along with Wayne Bell from the original TCM. And the special effects were created by J.M. Logan of films like Apocalypto and I Know Who Killed Me. Shout out Professor Victor. Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre premiered at South by Southwest and apparently got positive reviews, but then it was purchased by TriStar Pictures and was re-edited for its theatrical release. This is also when the film's title was changed to The Next Generation. This release didn't happen until all the way into 1997, at which point Zellweger and McConaughey were much bigger stars. They actually waited until the release of Zellweger's film Jerry Maguire with the hopes that it would create more buzz for their own film. There was a slew of different lawsuits between the film's producers and distributors, as well as the distributors and Matthew McConaughey. They alleged that McConaughey tried to limit the film's release so that it wouldn't spoil his promising career, but the actors claimed that that never happened. Either way though, the film had a pitiful theatrical release and was met with mixed reviews. Some found it too silly to be scary, but others appreciated the parody and dark humor. Some thought the acting was shit, some thought the absurdity was a welcome surprise. Over the years, there have been less positive reviews and more outright negative ones, but the film definitely has a cult following of its own. It currently has a 16 and 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, along with a 1.9 on Letterboxd, putting it near the very bottom of the franchise. I wouldn't say my opinion is especially divergent. I find Part 4 to be a pretty messy slog that has its occasional fun moments sprinkled in. But if nothing else, it's a memorable film, and I'm excited to watch it with fresh eyes and renewed familiarity with all the films that came before it. But with all of that said, it's probably time we get started. Alright. Let's watch TCM4: The Next Generation. The movie opens with a brief recap of the original, along with a slight diss of the previous two sequels. It's been 5 years since any chainsaw shenanigans, but looks like 1996 is the year of the saw. We meet our final girl Jenny and her date Sean as their prom pictures heinously misuse the flashbulb sound effect. Their friend Heather is searching for her boyfriend Barry, who gets caught smacking lips with some girl outside. He chases down his own car as she's speeding off in it, but he's also not willing to admit he did anything wrong.
It's not my fault they're stupid enough to believe it.
Jenny and Sean pop out to call him on his shit, and this causes Heather to crash Barry's dad's car. She skirts away, and we attempt to add some shades of character to these dinguses. In short, Jenny is a virgin scared of boys, Sean is her platonic stoner friend, we've established that Barry is a schmuck,
Afraid somebody might find out you have tits.
Barry.
Girls have tits.
and Heather is a bitch. Her words, not mine.
I told you I'm a bitch.
They inexplicably take some detour, which is impossible to explain because the movie doesn't even bother explaining where the teens are trying to go. Y'all didn't know how to get home from your own fucking high school? Then a fucking car comes out of nowhere and T-bones them. Hey, maybe this guy will be as cool as Benny in part 3.
I'm not hurt.
Oh, never mind. Both cars are magically totaled, so Jenny, Barry, and Heather search for help while Sean stays with the unconscious fella. They come across, what the fuck is that? A dog? A dinosaur? No clue. They waltz into a woman named Darla's trailer and ask her to call for help, and she rings up her husband Vilmer to give them a hand. Then she brags about her boob job before flashing some high school boys? Okay. And then by the very next scene, Vilmer has gotten to the wreck. Hey, if nothing else, TCM4 is at least moving quickly. But as you may have guessed, husband Vilmer is evil. Vilmer and his unexplained hydraulic leg snap this fella's neck and announce he's gonna kill Sean next.
It ain't no fucking biggie.
The teen tries to make a run for it and Vilmer hops into his tow truck. Sean even tries to reason with the psycho to no avail.
All right, racing fans, here we go.
And Vilmer runs him over and over and over again. Darla sees off her gullible little losers as they head back to the wreck.
But you just tell him how the cows eat the cabbage and you won't have any trouble.
But dumbass Jenny gets left behind when Heather and Barry chase after a passing truck. This gives the Lovebirds another moment for development, where we learn that Heather's dumb bimbo personality is mostly an act to be popular, and she also has a lot of respect for Jenny due to her crappy home life. Well, that's nice at least. Next, they come across what is obviously the house of an evil cannibal family. Barry sneaks around back to peer into the windows, and Heather proves to have zero spatial awareness. Barry gets held at gunpoint by another new slaughter, this one named W.E. He's named after that gas station in the original film. Leatherface snatches Heather and drags her inside, and despite several valiant efforts to fight back and escape, he manages to trap her inside a cooler. Poor Leatherface is upset about it though. Barry hears the commotion and manages to lock W.E. out of his own home, but he also doesn't seem to understand how serious their situation is.
There's some crazy guy outside with a shotgun. Locked him out though. You should have seen me.
Bro takes a leak before finding a tubby time corpse, but before he can do anything, Leather bonks him with a hammer. To make room for his new meat, he moves poor Heather onto a meat hook. Ouch. Jenny returns to find both cars and Sean missing, but hey, at least Vilmer is here to offer the young lady a ride. He immediately reveals that he's a murderous psychopath and even shows off the bodies of his latest victims, but Jenny jumps from the moving vehicle and makes a run for it. He chases her through a field but stops when she reaches the woods, but he warns her that it isn't much safer there as he drives off. Hey, what's up, Leatherface? The big, scary, screaming baby chases her back to the house, where we get basically a shot-for-shot redo of Sally's first run inside the Sawyer home. Except this time there's a petrified cop, I guess. To Jenny's credit, she does try to shoot Leatherface before yeeting herself out a window. This leads to a rooftop chase where she very unwisely climbs a TV antenna, but she manages to Tarzan her way onto a nearby electric line and Ninja Warrior away. Oh, but never mind, Leatherface cuts the line and she plops down a couple of floors into an old greenhouse. Huzzah! The chase continues all the way back to Darla's place, and at first she makes light of Leatherface's antics.
He's out there with a chainsaw. No, he had a chainsaw. He was chasing me with a chainsaw.
Her mood sours when Jenny says that Vilmer killed Sean though, and she calls up WE to get over here ASAP. So I'm not totally sure, but I actually don't think Darla intended to have these kids killed when she called Vilmer. She seems like genuinely pissed that he did it, but I don't really know what she thought her deranged husband was gonna do. WE shows up with a trash bag and a cattle prod, and he very cruelly shocks the poor girl as he stuffs her in Darla's trunk. She swings by the local pizza place for a couple of pies, where she casually jokes about Jenny.
That's just somebody I got tied up back there.
She also gets questioned by a cop while she's telling Jenny to shut up, but this is Darla's world and we're all just living in it. Next, she comes across Heather, who I guess escaped from her meat hook. All this gets her is a whacking though.
Don't hit me.
Darla drops off the pizza, has little old lady Leatherface bring Jenny inside, and informs WE that Heather is making a very slow getaway. Vilmer opens up his present and makes some very big claims.
You don't think the FBI has its place under 24-hour surveillance? You don't think there's transmitters in all these walls?
And he promises that they are gonna have some fun together. Great. Leatherface drags Heather inside and Vilmer gives her a toothy kiss. Darla dolls up Jenny in the bathroom and tries to comfort her in her own weird way, also revealing that Vilmer's FBI claims are bullshit, but this is part of something bigger.
I mean, who do you think killed Kennedy?
Government?
No, that government stuff is bullcrap. It's these people.
He bursts in and threatens to slit Jenny's throat on the spot, but she manages to talk him out of it for now. The whole family gets into a big ol' fight, giving Jenny the opportunity to grab a nearby shotgun. Vilmer doesn't take this threat very seriously, almost relishing the idea that Jenny might be able to do it, but he gets a bit distracted beating his wife. Jenny tries and fails to rally Heather and blow off Vilmer's head, and he reveals she chose the wrong barrel. She hops in Darla's car but gets ambushed by Vilmer, and an open hood causes her to crash. Back to the slaughterhouse we go. We get a lovely shot of Leatherface doing his makeup, which mimics the opening shots introducing us to an unconfident Jenny, but Bubba is a babe and knows it. Vilmer and Darla have a weird fucking makeout sesh, which finally takes us to a very dazed and confused dinner scene.
All right.
Lots of screaming ensues. And who the fuck is this old man? Hashtag not my grandpa. Vilmer announces that Leather is gonna take her face, but Jenny has had enough and declares she doesn't believe any of his or Darla's bullshit.
I'm gonna leave, and no one is gonna stop me. You sit the fuck down!
This sends Vilmer on another rampage that results in WE getting his head bashed in, so discount grandpa pieces the fuck out. Next, he lights Heather on fire, and as Darla puts it out, a car pulls up outside. Looks like Vilmer's mysterious employer is here. This fella is Rothman, and he's in the business of evil. Yeah, this is the Illuminati or whatever.
I want these people to know the meaning of horror.
He's pissed at Vilmer for losing focus and turning his work into a sideshow attraction, but Rothman's not really one to talk with his P.T. Barnum looking body mods. He licks Jenny's face for far too long and then just fucking leaves, I guess. Ready to get back to work, Vilmer finally puts Heather out of her misery with his hydraulic leg. Jenny makes another escape attempt as Leatherface revs up his chainsaw, and she gets a hold of Vilmer's leg's remote control to briefly incapacitate him. Leatherface chases her down the road as Vilmer resets and hypes himself up.
Get that bitch! Go!
Jenny comes across maybe my favorite characters in the film, Mr. and Mrs. Spottish, during their Bloody Mary-fueled road trip, and they kindly pick up the would-be murder victim.
There's a monster chasing her with a chainsaw.
Leather hitches a ride with Vilmer and causes the RV to crash, RIP the Spottishes, so the boys continue their chase on foot. But then, I kid you not, a completely unexplained yellow airplane comes out of nowhere and kills Vilmer with its propeller. Okay, bye! I agree, Leatherface, this is worse than the Man in Black from Halloween 5. I can only assume this was the work of Rothman, who is magically there to pick up Jenny. Okay, bye? Rothman apologizes for this going so poorly, saying this was meant to be a spiritual experience. Oh, no worries, man, sorry. I hope it goes better next time. He drops her off at the local hospital where we get some rapid-fire cameos from John Dugan, Paul Partain, and Marilyn Burns from the original. The movie ends with one more shameless callback as Leatherface does his signature chainsaw dance. And that's The Next Generation. Ugh. I'm sorry, y'all. I wish I could tell you I like this one, or it's at least so bad it's good, but it's mostly just bad. I mean, it's a step down from Part 3 in almost every single way, and even that film wasn't much of a starting point. The movie is ugly and uninteresting to look at most of the time. It's almost entirely set at night, which would be fine if they utilized the darkness and shadows in smart ways, but no, it's pretty much just underlit the whole time. Aside from Stretch in Part 2, I wouldn't say this franchise has had any really memorable final girls, but Jenny is definitely the least interesting and least memorable of the bunch so far. And that's a shame because she is one of the most likable characters here, but that's mostly because everyone here is so miserable. I know the teens are supposed to be these unlikable, stereotype parody spoofs of 90s kids, but they really aren't any different from the unlikable stereotype teens we got back in the 80s. Barry and Heather do have some funny lines, to be fair. Vilmer is at least very memorable, and I actually really love Darla. She's the real highlight of the film for me. And at the risk of many dislikes on this video, I actually kind of like this rendition of Leatherface. The screaming can be a bit much, and they are hamming it up with the drag a bit too much, but this Leatherface feels the most like the one we got in the original in some ways. Yes, he's capable of brutal violence, but he's also clearly the abusive family's maid and whipping boy. He's frightened of others, and he's also frightened of what he does to them, and I like my Leatherface to have that extra little bit of complexity or at least moral ambiguity in some sense. However, I do not like that Leatherface is essentially a background character here. This shit is the Vilmer show through and through. And yes, he does have some funny lines, memorable overacting, and he makes some very funny noises throughout the film. I just don't find him to be compelling in the slightest. Gone is any nuance as to why he and his family kill people. It doesn't seem to be for money or anything. They seem to have jobs and can order pizzas and whatnot. They're just crazy and apparently work for the Illuminati. But they also live like 10 minutes away from these kids. They weren't driving that long, they took one wrong turn. But also, it's been 5 years since they've killed anybody. Nothing's adding up. And the Illuminati joke brings me to my biggest issue with the film. Rothman's bizarre inclusion might just be worse than the Man in Black from Halloween 5. It feels like Henkel just couldn't figure out how to end this shit show. Not to mention the film's big bad was killed by a fucking airplane. There's an argument in here somewhere that this is an allegory or a metaphor for the US government doing awful things to American citizens, but there isn't nearly enough subtext in here to make that make sense. It's just handled way too sloppily for any genuine argument. But that's not to say TCM4 is not worth the occasional watch. It is so incoherent and rambling that it's very interesting. Not good, but interesting. The Sawyers are now the Slaughters. Cannibals are ordering pizza. Matthew McConaughey has a completely unexplained robotic leg controlled by a remote control. Leatherface has borrowed Buffalo Bill's woman suit. The new matriarch is sporting a purple 90s power suit. Another Slaughter family member can only speak in quotes from famous philosophers. And nobody gets cut with a chainsaw. All in all, The Next Generation is a big mess, but I can understand if you get more entertainment value out of it than me. It's incompetent filmmaking at some of its grimiest and lowest, which actually feels more at home in this franchise than some of the glossy crap that will come later. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's unpleasant, sometimes it's absolutely ludicrous, but if nothing else, it's a very unique Texas Chainsaw film. Well, that's about it. What do y'all think about The Next Generation? Do you hate it? Was I too hard on it? Was I too easy on it? Let me know down below. Soon we're going to be checking out the 2003 remake, but first we're going to take a little detour to celebrate these chilly months with some winter horror. Be sure to join me in 2 weeks as we watch Misery. Thank you all so much for joining me, and an extra thank you to my patrons. As always, I'm Noah Hook, and thanks for watching Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching my review of TCM4 The Next Generation. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up with all my horror reviews, and if you want to help support the channel further, you should check out my Patreon account. You'll be able to vote for future movies and franchises I cover on the channel. Thanks y'all.